Hi, I'm Hani Gluck, and you are listening to Growing Global. I am passionate about helping entrepreneurs grow and scale their business. I've been an entrepreneur for over 2 decades. I built my own businesses, sold a business, and continue to leverage the global economy. Growing Global is about educating, inspiring, and motivating entrepreneurs or aspiring entrepreneurs on how to take yourself and your business to the next level. Okay, so today I'm with a very special person, David Berg. He's a very good friend, a personal mentor for the last 8 years, and I'm so happy to have you on, David. David is the current CEO of Redirect Health. He is a trained chiropractor, but went soon into being an entrepreneur and building medical facilities. And we'll talk all more about that in a little bit. So, David, tell us, from all of the entrepreneurs you've mentored over the years, is there a common thread between the entrepreneurs that you've seen stay where they're at, and what have you seen for the ones that really took it to the next level and are really different people today? Have you seen anything in common with all those people that you and I both know?
So a couple of things come to mind, and I'm sure if I had more time to ruminate on the question, other things would come to mind. But the two things that come to mind is, number one, it's about mindset. So they're willing to manage their mindset and able to adapt, challenge it and adapt it, and not so much change their mindset for different scenarios, but apply different parts of it in different scenarios, but to have one general mindset way of thinking about things. And that's the biggest thing. When I see a mindset shift in somebody, that's when you can just count on that entrepreneur taking off or going in new directions. That'd be the first thing. The second thing I see with all entrepreneurs is the ones that do really well become confident in making promises to people they don't know they can keep, but they know they will keep them. But they don't know how they're going to keep them, and they don't know if they're going to hit the deadlines, but they know they're going to be able to fix it if they can't. And you think about what that looks like in real life, where every entrepreneur is making promises to somebody. Maybe it's a market, maybe it's a customer, maybe it's their employee, right? There's nothing saying that you're going to be able to pay your employee tomorrow, but you're making promises to them, and those families are counting on you to do it. But you can't really know for sure you can pay your employees tomorrow or next week or next month, or even your landlord. You made a promise to your landlord. You can't really say you're going to be able to pay your landlord. So you're willing to make some promises that you don't know for sure you can keep, though you fully intend to, and you have a lot of confidence you're going to be able to figure it out when you get to that moment. And that's probably the biggest change between an entrepreneurial thinker and I guess the other side of it is a bureaucratic thinker. Somebody's more bureaucratic. But I do see it as a long continuum where you got bureaucratic thinking on one side and entrepreneurial thinking on the other. And you look at the Steve Jobs or the Elon Musk, right? They're making promises. Elon Musk making promises he's going to Mars to his investors, right? He has no idea how he's going to do it, but he's willing to make that promise and take the risk that he might not be able to meet it and satisfy people. And entrepreneurs tend to be probably over here versus over here. The people that take the government jobs, they're going to be over at this end of that continuum. So when I see somebody talking with using bureaucratic type language, I know that they're in a mindset that's not very conducive to them making promises they don't know they can keep. And so the biggest shift that I try to make in the people that ask me for my help is to get them to shift their minds to being willing to make some promises they don't know they can keep, but they fully intend to, and then to develop the skills to figure it out and to adapt and to learn. And then when you make a mistake, to go say, hey, I am really sorry I didn't hit that deadline, but here's what I'm going to do instead to make it better. Right?
Okay,
There's a confidence that develops.
Okay, so confidence is key. Okay, number one, confidence in yourself and your ability to deliver on your word. Okay, that's pretty powerful. I know you're also very sensitive to the words that people use, and it's probably because of this, right? I know you've caught us using different employee type words, like you don't like the word retirement or I want to retire. What does that mean?
To not be
Right.
useful any longer and to be
Right.
taken out of use. I don't know you, but I want to be useful well after I'm dead. I want to be useful.
Okay, so there are so many what I call Davidisms in my mind when a situation comes up and I think, okay, what would David say about this? But there's one thing you taught me many years ago that I want you to share because you say it so well. I've probably repeated it 20 times since, but I just want you to talk to us about you have a method of firing people that works really well. You know, the three choices.
Mhm.
Want to talk to us about the three choices?
Okay, so first, I never fire anybody. I mean,
Well, yeah.
I can think of one person in my career of hundreds, probably thousands of opportunities where I could have, and I can only think of one person where I ever fired them. Um, well before somebody deserves to be fired, if we're doing our jobs well as leaders, as managers, we know the relationship's not working. And we'll had that conversation many, many times about what it takes to have a great relationship or a working relationship. It might be different today than what's needed today might be different than what was needed 3 years ago. So the same behavior and the same relationship today might not work in a scenario that worked a year ago or 2 years ago or 10 years ago. So it's about having constant communication about how well is this relationship working given the present time, present scenario, present needs, present resources, the rest of the team, which all is always changing. So the conversation you're referring to, I call it hey, this relationship's just not working anymore for me. How's it working for you? Are you happy? Here's what used to make me happy. Here's why I'm not happy now. Maybe it's because something has changed in me. Something's changed in the company, changed in our team, changed in you, but it's just not working. So it's an honest conversation. And usually when it gets to that point where it's to the point you're discussing right now, I've thought through what are the different options. And the conversation will go something like this. Hey, Connie, this relationship's just not working for me the way it used to. I used to just love coming to work and working with you and the teamwork that I experienced every time you were around. And our company was making money and sales were rolling in. And just lately, it seems like you're down all the time. And when you come in the office, the mood is different. And I find myself going to bed at night thinking about how it's going to be the next morning. How are you going to be feeling? And so it's not working for me anymore, Connie. So I've got a couple ideas I've been thinking about. Maybe you've got some other options. I'm open to them, but let me just tell you what I'm thinking about. Okay. The first option is we can just part ways right now, and we'll just be friends, and no harm, no foul. We'll just part ways right now. But another option is we can figure out how to figure out a transition. So maybe that takes 2 weeks or 2 months, or maybe it takes 6 months. And maybe even you want to stick around long enough to help us find your replacement and to train them. And but I'm going to leave that up to you, and you don't have to figure it out right now. But that's just another option. And the third option that I thought about, Connie, is we can try to figure out how to make this work, how to make this relationship work. Now, I'm shy to bring it up because it's the hardest one, and there's a lot of things that might seem out of your control. Meaning, I want to go to bed at night knowing that when I come in that next day, this company and your team and with you in it is firing on all cylinders, and that you're the cause of that team firing greatly. And if you want to take that option, I know it's a lot of work. I will give you every resource I've got, and I'll give you constant feedback how it's working. But those are the three options I'm thinking about. So let me pause now, Connie, and see what you think about that. Maybe you've got some other thinking behind that or some other thoughts. But think of what I did. The first step was I'm being very honest with what worked, what didn't work. And then in the relationship before and now, and then it's a little bit of shock and awe to make sure I'm serious. We can part ways right now. That's going to change your emotion a little bit. It's going to change your physiology. It's going to change your how your brain's working right now. The next step is about a transition. And if you want to help me find your replacement and train them, what we've done there is we've given you dignity. So I want you to know I'm serious, that this relationship is not working for me. And I also want to know that I care about you as a person and make sure you have all the dignity you want. Because I don't want to be fighting you feeling attacked personally, or that I'm saying you're not good enough or you're not a nice person, because I really want to get to the third option where you're going to give me your creative brain. I want to get rid of the crocodile brain best I can, because I want to know your creativity. I want to know how good can you be. And what people always take option 3. Now, maybe half of them we'll come back in 2 weeks and here's my notice. But at least they have their dignity. They did it in their terms, and they don't hate you over it. And they stay friends. And I tell my team, my managers, that the ultimate separation goal is that they continue to use us as customers, right? So they can continue to get their health care from us. And if they do that, and they're telling great stories about us, it was a great separation and it made sense. And so those are the three options.
What would you say in your experience when you've used this? What option do most people, like what naturally happens? Tell us about that.
Well, most times they will take the option 3. They want to make it work. Half the time they're going to figure out something else makes more sense for them because it's too hard. And a lot of times there's other things in their life that are going on that are getting in the way right now. And sometimes they factor in, and we want to just talk about them and see if we want to reevaluate in a month. Maybe they're going through a child that's misbehaving, or a divorce, or a separation, or an illness in the family, or a death in the family, and people aren't going to be at their best. So that's a good time to get it out and just to figure out, okay, how do we work together, make this relationship work, given that, you're having to travel back and forth to Ohio because you got a mom that's dying soon, right? These are real problems, and it's nice to get them out so we can know what we're dealing with, and then make the relationship work better, given the current situation in the company and in all of our lives. When people do stick around and make it work, they are incredible. Some of our best relationships and team members come out of that conversation, and they always say the same thing. No one's ever been that honest with me and challenged me to be better in that way. Right. So it's to say, hey, I want to go to bed knowing, sleeping great, and knowing that when I get to work tomorrow and I see you, Connie, you're going to be the center of the energy of your team and of our team. And I want to walk in and count on that energy. Right. So it's about raising the bar in that third option. Right. And there are people who a lot of times are misbehaving because the bar is so low and they don't feel important, and they don't feel like their talents are being used. And putting it out there and say, hey, you're better than this. We're all better than this. And let's create something together. Can be very powerful for some people. Other people, it's not. And it's some people, it sometimes work, but that same person a year later wouldn't have made a difference, and a year later wouldn't have made a difference. So timing matters too.
Right, for sure. Let's talk through that, mindset shift of being rigid and saying, this is what we do. Let's talk me through that whole train of thought you've got.
Right. So the main thing that matters there is about the starting point, not the finish point. So often we already know the answer is no at the end. So we want to jump right there, and we think we're saving people time. But when we do that, again, we miss the creative part of somebody's brain. And because maybe they don't know what to ask for, right? So what we say in our company is one of our core values, actually, the main big core value is obsess over the customer. Just obsess over them at every touch point. One of the ways we do that is we always start with yes. Always start with yes, and we figure it out from there. And a lot of people are going to say, I know what they're going to say. They go, how can you say yes to everything? Well, what if it was, yes, we can help you, was the starting point of everything. Yes, we can help you. Okay? That's the starting point. So if you said, Dave, can you give me $10 million in the next 20 minutes? I go, yes. Now, all we've got to do is find somebody with $10 million who would be willing to part with it. So help me figure that out. Connie, who do we know that's got $10 million that we can part with, who would part with in the next 20 minutes? And you're probably going to change your ask. You might say 20 days. You might say 20 years. You might say, stupid idea. I don't know anyone either. What I really want is I want to drive in a Rolls Royce. Oh, we can rent one, right? We can do some other things, right? You might not know how to ask the question. So it's about getting the clarity. But when we say, yes, we can help you, I bypass that reptilian, that crocodile brain, right? And I get to your creative brain. And Robert Cialdini is one of the best at just describing that technique of getting to the creative part of somebody's brain. And he wrote a book called Persuasion that I'd recommend for everybody. But that's the concept there. It's just, if we start with, yes, we can help you. So think about it in a doctor's office. We set people up for failure all the time, for a no answer. So, ring-a-ling-ling. I like an appointment. Great. When would you like it? Sometime this afternoon. Right. Oh, well, the doctor's busy. I just gave you a no. But what if the answer was, yes, I can help you with that, or we can help you with that. So let me just see what time do you get off work? We just ask some more questions and say, okay, let me check. All right, I can get you in with Dr. Smith, your doctor, tomorrow at 10 a.m., but I can also get you in with our nurse practitioner today right after work. Will one of those options work for you? Or if not, I can check some more options. So I didn't really give you the option you asked for, but I didn't say no. I didn't start with no. I started with yes, we can help you. And then I figure out the best answer I can given the parameters. But I've got more information to seek out of you, to get out of you, to understand why you might want what you want. And maybe there's a better answer to what you're asking.
Right.
But
So
yes,
powerful.
we can help you. Not yes, I can help you. But yes, we can help you.
And this answer does kind of correlate with your other confidence thing, which we talked about before, right? You have to have the confidence enough to say yes and lead with yes and knowing that you could deliver. So that is powerful stuff. So I know you're all about the customer and you are so customer focused. Tell us about how that's, been, well, you've built your whole business around it, right? It's all about, for you, the patient and treating the patient a certain way and giving them the best experience. So I think that's great. You've talked about sometimes the customer doesn't know what they want.
Yeah.
Tell us about that. Like,
Can I go back to what you just said?
yeah,
You said it's all about the customer and then you switch to the patient. And I just want to correct that because if you think about my wife's a family physician, as you know, and we are her family members. And her job is to keep us from being patients. She's doing her job best, a mom with a medical degree, a wife with a medical degree, when her family members do not become patients. Or when they are patients, she gets them to stop being patients. Make sense?
yeah,
So that's the first thing I'd say. So I'm opposed to the concept of a doctor-patient relationship. The doctor, the patient. Doctor's job is to be smart and to give orders and to give recommendations. The patient's job is to comply with the doctor's recommendations. It's the
right.
patient's job to show up on time. It's the doctor's job to get to him as soon as he or she can. See the difference?
Yes,
But now
yes.
when you go to a relationship, there's a power difference. When you go to a relationship of an accountant or a lawyer, it's more client-consultant relationship, a little more equal.
Right.
But what if you go to the customer and the store? I don't care if it's McDonald's, I don't care if it's Nordstrom's, Jiffy Lube, doesn't matter. The store. The store has a team of people. It's got process, it's got technology. In our case, we have doctors, really smart people. We have managers, we have leaders, we have the janitor, we have assistants, billing people. Our job is to give recommendations to our customer so that our recommendations comply with the needs and constraints of our customers. So it's our job to serve our customer. So when we use patient, it's really the patient's job is to comply with the instructions of the doctor. When you switch it, it's our job as the team, as the healthcare center, to comply with the needs and constraints of our customer. So that's why that's important to us. And now we want our customers to be members and pay us a monthly amount so that we don't make more money when they actually use our services. We don't. We want to help them not have to use our services by getting their needs met in a proactive way, keeping them healthy so that they don't get sick, so that their child's diabetes is taken care of in the best, most effective way, so they don't have to come see us, so they don't have to go to the emergency rooms. So there's even a difference between customer and member. But our job is to keep all our customers and all our members from being patients of ours or somebody else's too, especially the hospital systems.
Of course, of course. That's where all the big money is spent.
Yeah. And it's also where the more serious conditions are too, and serious procedures.
Right. And we want to keep everybody, well, it's all about being healthy and mindful and going for your wellness exams and preventative care, and all of that is also super
Now,
important.
another customer that's very important are the internal customers, our team members. We are customers of each other. So as a leadership team, our customers are our management team and our employees. As a manager, our customers are our frontline employees. They are our customers, and they're in charge of us serving them. And our job as managers or leaders is to create structure and to create vision that comply with the needs of not only our customers that are going to buy from us, but also the needs of our people. It's our job to create structure that our people, our frontline people, our receptionists, our janitors, our physicians, anyone can fit into. That's all. When I say obsessed with a customer, that's what I'm referring to. It's more about directionality of service than it is anything else.
If all entrepreneurs only saw their company that way, that would be so powerful. If you so much valued your customer and you so valued the employees that work for you, how amazing is that? It's so great. I want to talk about, you introduced me to the power of TED, which is really quite powerful. And it's a drama without getting into it too much. I mean, because that's a whole hour conversation on its own. But tell me, there's this book called The Power of TED that you make required reading for your team. Tell us about that and what's your reaction to that, and give us a little bit of background about what is this all about.
So the Power of TED talks about David Cartman's The Drama Triangle, which talks about just having it's a victim mindset, if you will. And then David Emerald took the opposite of the victim triangle, which is where you've got a persecutor and you've got a hero and you've got a victim. And it transformed that into what he called the empowerment dynamic, TED, the power of TED, TED, where you've got the victim becomes a creator and the persecutor becomes a challenger and the rescuer becomes a coach. And it's just, he transforms it. And what I like about it is the framework for mindset in a company that everybody gets, and they can apply it outside of just the business. They can apply it with their relationships at home, with their friends, on their ball team. I mean, they can apply it so many places, their kids' school. So it's a mindset and a framework that when people read about it and hear it, they see how their whole life will be better. And what's interesting is, to me, is the genius and the simplicity of it is that somebody was telling me, just drew it on a napkin once. And I just found myself thinking about it. And about 3 days later, I couldn't sleep. So in the middle of the night, I reproduced it, the drawing that somebody had discussed with me. And then I read the book afterwards, and I was just amazed at how similar the drawings in the book were to what I'd actually drawn without reading the book through another person, just hearing through another person. And so we drew our own version of it. That original version, actually, I showed it to one of my managers before I read the book, and he turned it into a poster. And then when I read the book, I realized that, wow, I was really using David Emerald's material here, even though I never read the book, just somebody described it to me. I was amazed at how similar what I drew in the middle of the night without reading the book was to the book. And that was a testimony to the genius of it, the simplicity of that, right? The genius and the simplicity of it. And so I just said, so I bought the book and I read it and I shared it with a bunch of folks and they liked it, but not just from the perspective of the business. I liked how it was going to affect their whole life. And uniformly, I've never met anyone who's read that book and not said, this changes my life if I do this. And in so many little ways that are very actionable and doable. And so now every employee that starts their very first day, they read The Power of TED, we pay them to do it. And then we give them a little test. If they don't get all the answers right, the manager will tell them what the answers are, give them an hour to reread the book. And when they come back, we rewrite the same test and they always pass it. I believe the genius of it was how simple it was. So somebody could tell me the ideas. I could draw a picture in the middle of the night 2 days later, share it with my team. They created a a poster of my drawing. And then when I read the book, I saw just how similar it was. And so we started making the book, the very first thing. It's about an hour read, hour and a half read. Very first thing that anyone does their first day of work. And then we do a little test afterwards. And most people get it right. But if you get something wrong, the manager then will review with you what it means and give you a little bit of time, half an hour, to reread that section. And then come back and rewrite the same test. It also serves the purpose of holding the manager accountable to the training of it, right? With a little bit of a test. But, we've ordered so many of these, and I'm going to go back years now. This is probably 5, 6, 7 years ago. David Emerald, the author, called our office because he was in Arizona and said, I'd like to come by. You guys order more of these books than anyone else in the country. And we've ordered many more since then too. And so I've become pretty good friends with he and his wife over me ordering so many of his books, and he looking me up and saying, who the heck are you to order so many books? And I just shared with him why we were doing it. And I shared the poster with him that I drew. And of course he said, you got the triangles upside down.
Well, which famous authors that you've bumped into. Tell us your car ride with Tim Ferris.
Tim Ferris. So Tim Ferris is an awesome human being and a great speaker, and what a thinker he is. And I had the privilege of being invited to speak on a stage where he was the headliner. And at my friend Phil Rodonzo's organization called American U, where he helps military folks that are getting out of the military understand an entrepreneurial journey in case that might fit with their need for teamwork and camaraderie better than a normal corporate setting might. And so Tim was speaking mainly, and I was there tagging along, and I had a bit too. So we're in the back of a van, and Tim had just written his book, 4-Hour Chef. And one guy sitting next to him, another bit speaker like me, was just gushing on Tim about how he loved his book, The 4-Hour Chef, and he'd read it a couple times. And Tim was real quiet and he's stoic. And I tried to read that book, 4-Hour Chef, and I hated it. I thought it was stupid. Like, I didn't get it. And I probably picked it up 6, 7 times trying to read it. Didn't get more than half an hour into it and said, I'm not getting anything out of this. But I loved his last books. The 4-Hour Work Week, the 4-Hour Body. Those are two. I go, wow, these are so good. The 4-Hour Chef must be this good too. So I kept going back at it. But this other guy had obviously gotten so much more out of it than me. So I interrupted the conversation. I went, Tim, I got to tell you, I don't get it. I tried to read the 4-Hour Chef, and I just cannot get into it. But I'm sure it's really good because your last two were like fantastic. If there's one thing you could like tell me about it that would really make me enjoy your book or just help me understand it, what would that one thing be? And Tim Ferris kind of chuckles and he laughs. He goes from being serious to now kind of laughing. And I was kind of put off by it because I felt like he was laughing at me for asking this question, where the other guy seemed like he got it and he understood the book. And I'm just admitting being a little vulnerable. I'm stupid. I don't get your book, but I want to understand it. I'm going to try it again, but help me understand it. And he laughed. And then, so I caught him laughing and I said, well, what's that all about, dude? Like, why would you laugh at me? Because I asked this question. We're back of a van driving. We got about 20, 30-minute drive to the event. And he goes, oh, no, Dave. Okay, so let me get this straight, Dave. You want to know what's the one thing, if I told you right now, would accelerate your learning so you can understand my book? And I go, yeah. So he said it much more elegantly than I said it to him. And I go, yeah, guess what I'm asking. He said, well, the concept of the book is not about cooking. It's around how to learn really fast. And so I wanted to learn how to be a world-class chef. So the way that I wanted to learn is I was going to go seek out the masters from French cooking or Thai cooking or whatever it is. And I was going to ask them, what's the one thing, if I knew it about French cooking, would accelerate my learning the greatest if I knew it right now? So it was about just applying that thinking to cooking. And he had just asked me that question, right? And he said, so you're asking me, what's the one thing, if you knew it right now, would accelerate your understanding of this book? And I go, yeah, I am. He goes, and then I basically just repeated, go find the master and ask them what the one thing you need to know right now that would accelerate your learning about this topic. He goes, exactly. I go, so I don't need to read your book then, because you just told me. I just went to the master. He goes, exactly. You'd be stupid to read my book, Dave. I went, whoa. And of course, that was kind of funny because the guy next to him just told me how he'd read it a bunch of times.
Right. But you know what's interesting about that story is that you've told it to me in a different context. But what my take from the story was, and this is what I think is the beauty of your mentorship. You may know what that person needs to do like 5 steps from now, right? But when you tell someone something, it's like, this is what you need right now. I don't care about, you know, all the 10 steps you need after that. Just do this one thing today, or do this one thing now. And then I'll talk to you next week or in 2 weeks, or get back to me when you did that one thing. And I think that's powerful because as mentors, you know, many times I've seen you have had people pegged from like the first meeting. Like you knew what their issues were. You were able to recite it, you know, for every person. You could say, this is this issue. But you can't fast track and tell that person, you've got a shitty mindset and you need to snap. You have to say one thing that's going to be so impactful that's really going to make them make that switch on their own without you saying something, right?
Yeah. And I think what makes it easier for me is I'm only looking for the one thing, the one big important next thing. And you know where I learned that from is the concept. So I just told you about Tim Ferris, and part of the reason why I was able to really fast see what Tim was doing is and extract mastery out of Tim in that one little car ride or back of a van is because of I've been part of strategic coach with Dan Sullivan now for about 18 years, and Dan is just a master at strategic thinking and he's a master at it. I can't even begin to describe the benefit I've seen in my life because of just being with Dan for 18 years. And I think it's Dan that talked about the difference between expertise and mastery. If it's not him, I'm going to give him credit for it because maybe I made it up, but he stimulated the thinking for sure before I even met with that conversation with Tim Ferris. But the concept goes something like this, that when you meet an expert, they will tell you the 1,000 things, some usually in order, usually with if this and then this, but they're an expert at it. And when you're done talking to them, you're probably a little more confused, but you know one thing for certain, they're the expert and you're not. You know how smart they are and you're not. And you know that if you want to tap into that expertise, you've got to go hire them or read their book or do something, but it's about them. And, but a master might be an expert, but the master will ask you just a couple questions or observe a couple things until they figure out what's the next bigger little thing you need to do. And they'll share that with you. And that's it. And so Tim Ferris is a master at learning, and he shared that mastery with me. And one of the things I've talked to you about and others is be a master. Share mastery with people, not so much expertise. There might be time for expertise, but in casual conversation or when you get limited time, it's really mastery people are looking for. And in the way that I extract mastery out of people is I'll ask that question. And Tim Ferris really gave me the words. I'm changing them a little bit to be my words, but it's, hey, Connie, if there's one thing that I needed to know right now that would accelerate my ability to understand the value of using outsourced labor from the Philippines or India, what's the one thing, if I knew it right now, would accelerate my learning, Connie? That's a mastery question. That's my way of extracting your mastery out of you. I don't want to know the 100 things you know. I want to know the one thing that will accelerate my learning and the work I'm about to do. And I really, you know, when I first started doing that, way before I met Dan Sullivan, I started doing that in school. And I grew up in Toronto, Canada, and where we had 5 high school grades. So I did 5 high school grades, but there really were 5. I didn't repeat a year. So it's hard for some people to believe. They think I'm changing the story a bit. So I got really good at it by the end of my 5th year. But I had so many concussions before I was 13. I had 5 of them. 3 of them put me out for multiple days. So first one at 5. So I've never really been able to remember things the way other kids could. I mean, I couldn't tell you all the words to Happy Birthday or the Pledge of Allegiance or Oh Canada, or I just couldn't tell you the words of them. There's not one song I can tell you the words to. I've never had that memory. So I've had to figure out how to use acronyms and ways to understand things at a very detailed level and make it look like memory. What I had to do in order to do really well in high school is I had to create a game of it. And there were a couple of girls that were really smart and I could get good grades, but I did it in a different way than they did. They did it by memorizing, being really smart. I did it by understanding and extracting mastery out of the teachers. And so it would go something like this. I won't give you the long story, but let's say right before exam time, I'll just give you one thing where I was so good at it in my fifth year. Oh my gosh, was I good at it. I would know that the teachers would have to submit their final exam about 3 weeks before. And I knew that they were like everybody else. They kind of waited for the deadline and the 4 weeks before they started writing the exam. So I'd go to the teacher and I'd go, Mrs. Smith, I'm about to start studying for your exam a month out because I know she's writing the exam. I think these are the most important things that if I really understood them would accelerate my studying or make my studying in your course even that much more effective for this final exam. Have I got the main three things? And they would often not even have thought about what they're going to put in the exam yet. And they'd go, well, these two, but not this one. And don't forget about this. And we'd just start talking about their thinking before they wrote the exam, before they created the exam.
That is brilliant.
I'm involved in it. But you can see I'm extracting mastery out of them by what's the one thing if I knew it? What are the three things if I knew it would accelerate or make my studying better for your exam? And so Cialdini talks about this too, about the crocodile brain, the creative brain that we mentioned earlier, is you want to make, when you're asking somebody for something, if you're implying they have to do the work or you need their opinion and you're going to hold them to it or they're going to be judged by it, you're going to hit the crocodile brain all day long. And that's going to get in the way of the creative brain engaging. But if you go to somebody and you say to them, I'm going to do all the work here. And here's what I'm about to do. And here's why I'm about to do it. I'd like to get your advice on what I'm about to do. You see how you just persuade them to not think about the work they have to do. Just give you their creative brain. And it's another way of extracting mastery out of people. So again, mindset and some simple techniques are ways that I've done my whole life. If you can't use memory, you better understand things really well. And if you got to understand things really well, the best way to do it is to go to the master and find the one thing today, right now, that if I knew it better would accelerate everything after that. Now, once I know that one thing, 5 minutes later, what's the next one thing? 5 days later, what's the next one thing? Right? And that's my technique for learning things fast. And I've learned that from my own experimentation as I grew up and I couldn't remember things other kids could remember. And I've learned that from Dan Sullivan, putting some words on it. And I've learned it from the back of a van with Tim Ferris. And I've learned it a lot too from talking to folks like you and others that are been in the EO Accelerator program where you and I met.
Yeah. It's phenomenal. I'm just thinking about, many years of so many conversations you and I have had together. And I don't even think that you would also tell me that one thing was usually quite painful pill to swallow. It was something that I didn't want to look, but the truth, always the truth and always very accurate. And I had to sit with it. And I was like annoyed. And many times I was like hating you and upset with you. But of course, it was like the parent that nobody wants to, but it was exactly what I needed to hear. And it's exactly what helped me to continue to be successful. So, and you actually told me something last week that I've already been spinning on for like the whole week last week. And even this week, I'm still ruminating with that. So I so appreciate that. But
on my end, what that looks like is you never quite know how that one thing is going to land with somebody. And if there's a lot of time, you can figure it out. You can smooth it over. You can get the emotion out of the way that might be left afterwards. And, but there are a lot of times where that one thing could be a little painful, and then somebody else enters the conversation and the time ends and oh, you just leave it hanging where it's not all the loops are closed. And that was in you and me last week. And I'm going, man, should I just call her, text her? Like, what are the words? Right. I was a little tough on her, but I wasn't tougher than I normally am. It's just that we got interrupted and we didn't get a chance to finish the conversation. So I didn't get to end it where I wanted to with the right goal. Like, I never have a goal that somebody leaves upset or doubting themselves or low confidence. My goal is start there and then build it up.
Right.
So
No, it's all good, Dave.
they have
All
more
good.
capability.
Okay. I know we're getting towards the end of our time, but I really want to get some stuff in here. So you brought up Dan Sullivan, and I know you did this Netflix documentary, and you didn't even say anything about it. I just happened to have found it. And I said, Dave, I just saw you like have a little cameo on this. Tell us about how that happened, and tell us a little bit about, your experience with Strategic Coach.
So Joe Polish and I are good friends, and I'm part of his Genius Network, which is a marketing group, high-level, world-class marketing group. I'm the baby of that group, and so I'm holding my own now after 4 or 5 years. But I went in there because I joined that group because I knew I had to improve my understanding of communication and marketing, and I knew that was the best place for me to do it. And but anyway, Joe and I have been coached by Dan for years. Matter of fact, Joe introduced me to Dan 18, 19 years ago. And so we're on an airplane coming back from Chicago, and we both just had some major breakthroughs that Dan helped us with. And we're sitting there, and Joe says, we should do a film on Dan Sullivan. He's helped us and helped so many people. And so when we got to the Phoenix airport, after talking about just sitting there for 3 hours on an airplane next to each other, just brainstorming, we call our friend Nick Natton, who's a director. And we have no idea about producing a film or what it looks like or how much money it is or how easy or hard it is. So we pitch in the airport after we get off the plane to Nick Natton, who's in LA and in our time zone, luckily. If he wasn't, we didn't really care. And it's late at night too. We get home like 9 o'clock Phoenix time. And we pitched this idea to him. And we said, how much would that cost? And he tells us, and he says, but I want to go in on it also. We went, okay, so it's a third to produce this movie. But now we have the capability with Nick, because we don't want to produce a movie, but Nick has won Emmys, right? And we're just pitching it to him. And so Dan didn't originally want to do the movie, is my understanding, and so we had to convince him a little bit that it was going to be something that represented his life, and it wasn't as easy as you would think to represent the Dan Sullivan, who's so much more than a 90-minute film. And Nick was instrumental with Dan and his team to land on the game changer concept, and just the. Now we talked about free frontier, just the new stuff in front of us that he believes he'll be motivated and fascinated with, helping people change the game in their life in an entrepreneurial way for the rest of his life. So that's how that movie started. So I'm an executive producer on a movie, all because of Joe Polish and I were excited about some breakthroughs that we personally made, and we had 3 hours where we had to talk to each other on an airplane, and Nick Natton answered the phone when we got, if any of that didn't happen, we might've lost excitement for it. But then the excitement just kept building and building and building and building. And it turned into what it is.
It's just such a great story, but it's all about, your network, that you happen to know the right people. And it's also your ability to have the confidence to say, okay, let's do this. Right. And so I think that's wonderful. Okay.
Well, so it's a story with, yes, we can help you.
Right.
Sometimes it turns into, no, we're not going to do a movie. And
right,
this time it started with, yes, we can help you. And we went and got the master at producing these documentaries. His name is Nick Natton, and next thing you know, I'm just attached to it. I mean, it's my main role. It was Joe's main idea. It was Nick did all the work, and I was the guy that just said, yes, we can help you.
We just brought the interview full circle. Okay, so you want to change the way we look at healthcare, and I know you love talking about this. So this is probably your favorite topic ever. So give us your few minutes of what are you doing with Redirect Health?
So I started Redirect Health because I could not figure out how to make the current American healthcare system of insurance with deductibles that are going up work for my employees or for me, who was paying for big part of their healthcare. So my employees, if I could afford to pay for it, they couldn't afford at that time, $1,500 deductibles. Now those deductibles are $7,000 in the normal world. So I sought out to fix the insurance, and I realized after about 9 months, it's unfixable. And so I started to create my own system. And the new system for my own employees is what now we turned into a business, and we're selling all over the country, all 50 states, probably about almost 1,000 clients now, small businesses. We're helping them provide healthcare benefits to all their employees, not just the high income earners, but the lowest income earners. And we're helping them leverage that into huge strategic hiring advantage, retention advantage, workers' comp cost reduction advantage. We're just helping them leverage the fact that they have 100% of their company with health benefits that are meaningful, and they have meaningful access to it. But the 4 principles that we put in place years ago, where we needed to separate the insurance, we still need it, some way to pay for it, but we need to separate it from the healthcare. We could not just like in car insurance, we can't let Geico tell you which windshield wipers you put on your car. We can't let Geico tell you what roads you drive on. We can't let the insurance companies, Blue Cross, United, Cigna, tell us what kind of doctors do we need, what kind of care do we need. We have to separate them. It's payment, very important. So around the healthcare, we also realized to make it really effective, the first move is get rid of the insurance or just separate, decouple it. We still need it to pay, but later, but decouple it. But in order to make the healthcare work, we need to put the logistics around it so that people could not only understand the care they needed, but also understand the care they didn't need and understand the work they need to miss, but the work they didn't need to miss, how to get stuff done on the phone, how to get stuff done in email, how to get stuff done in person. Is it a cardiologist or is it a cardiovascular surgeon? Is it a chiropractor? Is it a physical therapist? So just help them navigate the system with the logistics of it. And then now since what we've done, and we lowered the cost a lot for our own company when we did that, but now that we've rolled it into a business, we've added another element that just has taken this, put it on steroids, and that's the element of prediction. And when we can predict and anticipate somebody's healthcare need before they have it, that they are going to need an asthma inhaler they're about to run out of, or they're going to need a diabetes supply because they're about to run out of the way to test their blood so they can dose their insulin correctly. We can predict that and get ahead of that need and execute on that prediction. Oh my gosh, the right healthcare, but predicting the need before it actually happens so we can proactively take care of it with the logistics in place to make sure it can happen with minimal loss of work and paychecks. Now we decrease the risk of cost so much. Now we don't need as much insurance. Insurance is there to ensure risk of cost. That's what it's there for. But if we lower the risk of cost, can you see how we lower the need for insurance? We still need it, but we need much less. So that's been our structure from 12 years ago when I devised this new system. But now we've packaged it and put it into a form that we can deliver it to many small businesses around the country. And I'm loving it because it's an engineering feat, really. And it allows me to bring in the newer exponential technologies like artificial intelligence. We're using Microsoft's virtually free AI platform today to understand if any of our members are not feeling good about a conversation they've had with us. And it might be because of us. It might be because of the cost of the recommendation we've given them. It could be we didn't give them good news. We're in healthcare, right? Where you tell somebody they have cancer, it's problematic. People aren't happy about it. We tell people that their blood pressure needs some different measures because what we're doing right now is not working. It scares people because they don't know how it's going to affect their life and their ability to work and things like that. Well, we let artificial intelligence now listen to the call and make predictions on sentiment, and then we apply the appropriate actions so that we can jump in a laser-focused, strategic way to help people before they even know what's happening. Kind of Disney's approach, right? So solve the frustration before the customer even knows they're frustrated. Right. The guest even knows they're frustrated to get rid of it. So it's that concept of the healthcare they need, not stuff they don't, the logistics of getting it and avoiding stuff they don't, and the prediction of what they need before they need it, so we can often deliver what they need for a penny on the dollar of cost. And now the risk is so low, you don't need as much insurance. And a lot of times when you get the cost low enough, cash or credit card is a better option than using insurance, which is what's happened. In the last 12 years, even though I have insurance for my company, I've used it 0 times.
That's crazy.
You just don't need to use insurance if you get the cost so low and you get the structure right. So anyway, it's really a re-engineering the healthcare system and getting people who can't afford the traditional system anymore, get them out of that system. We still go and use the doctors and the drugs and the hospital and the operating rooms, but we use the components of the system and we pay appropriately for them, but we don't use the whole system because the whole system is bloated and there's a lot of waste in administration. And there's a lot of public companies here that make a lot of revenue and boost shareholder price through waste and administration. It's a system that is clearly broken for us, that works very well for shareholders today. It's broken for our country, but at the same time, it's driving our economy, so it's hard to make those arguments. It's a game I've chosen to not play and to not try to fix right now, though I've got lots of really smart people working on this problem, and several of them have approached me about us helping also. I know that my heart is with the small business person, especially the entrepreneurial small business owner. And nobody else believes that they can be helped with this problem. And I don't know anyone even believes they should, but I do. And that's why I love being here.
Okay, so for people that want to find out more about Redirect Health and how they could offer really low cost or minimal cost, it's like so minor what the cost is to insure one of your employees in the US versus purchasing a very expensive, health insurance plan, which is really not affordable for most business owners. Where do we go to get more information?
So go to redirecthealth.com and it'll take you through what you need to know. And one of the keys there is don't start with insurance. Just like don't start with no. It's like if there's one thing you need to know in order to accelerate your learning about how to make healthcare work for your business, it's this: do not ever start with insurance. It's the very last thing you consider. The paying for it's the last thing. Create a health plan, a healthcare plan. Figure out how to pay for it as a last step, but separate it, decouple it. It's the number one thing. But redirecthealth.com is the place to go, and I have a really good team. They can take you through anything that might be special for your company. But the real key here is, I don't believe that any entrepreneur, I don't believe that any small business owner, including myself. Now remember, I built this strategy for myself, this system for myself. So it's self-serving. I don't believe any entrepreneur should ever pay for anything unless there's an ROI attached to it. I don't believe, Connie, you should pay 1 penny for your employees' healthcare unless you know you're going to make 4 pennies. And you're going to make 4 pennies because you're going to attract a better team. You're going to have more job candidates. You're going to have less turnover, right? You're going to have less retraining costs. Maybe your other costs, maybe if you're in construction, your workers' comp costs would come down. If you can't show a return on investment, I don't even want you putting Redirect Health in your company.
Well, Dave, I've seen you hand out checks to people. Some of our friends have gotten checks because you've paid them money back, which is crazy. So, okay, awesome. I love it. David, thank you so much. This is great. And thank you for agreeing to do this with me. I appreciate it.
Oh, my pleasure. And I appreciate you allowing me to be here.
Thank you so much for listening. For more information on how to grow your business, visit our website at 4dglobalinc.com. That's the number 4, the letter D as in David, global, GLOBALINC.com. Click on the Owners Academy tab for more videos on sales, marketing, operations, and leadership. If you are in the healthcare space and would like to learn more about how to get started with an employee in India, or how to start a risk-free free trial with 4D Global, click on the Get Started for Free button on our website to book a time with someone on our team. See you next time.